The film begins in the apartment of a young woman named Ariel, who works as an editor for a fashion magazine. He noticed the missed calls from his sister Sarah and listened to her voicemails. Sarah's voice sounded desperate and anxious. She asks Ariel to call her back, but Ariel just puts her phone away and goes to work. When Ariel arrived at work, her assistant immediately gave her a schedule of meetings and tasks. However, Ariel quickly takes care of everything and then visits her photographer friend Paul. Meanwhile, paranormal professor Richard Hammer gives a lecture about angels and demons to an auditorium full of students. He mentions an opposition movement to the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages called the cult of the demon Baphomet. The statue of Baphomet has been missing for centuries, despite many people looking for it, and the professor himself has been looking for it for decades. After the lecture, Professor Hammer's flirtatious and teasing teaching assistant, Michelle, greeted the professor during the book signing. After the event, Richard and Michelle had a passionate encounter in his office. However, they were interrupted by another professor's assistant named Kyle. He shares the news about the survivor, Sarah. At the same time, while Ariel was talking to Paul, she received a call from her mother. Her mother informed the girl that Sarah had committed suicide. Ariel felt guilty for taking attention away from her sister and being too focused on work. So, when it was late at night, he and Paul went to Sarah's apartment. When they entered, they were surprised to find so many newspaper clippings hanging on the walls. They contain information about a massacre in a psychiatric hospital where the head doctor, Vannacutt, went insane and tortured his patients to death. 8 years later, the psychiatric institution has been converted into a private residence, and the owner holds a party where Sarah is one of the guests. However, the party gets out of control and the guests are killed for unknown reasons. Sarah is one of the few survivors, but she has her own version of what happened. He believed the house was haunted and the ghosts killed the guests. But, as expected, no one believed him. Even his sister Ariel, who later stopped talking to him. As they tour the apartment, Ariel sees Sarah's ghost, who tells her that she needs to help them. Then, Professor Richard Hammer suddenly walks in and informs them that Sarah contacted him 2 weeks ago. Hammer also mentions that Sarah holds the diary of Dr. Vannacutt. According to the diary, the statue of Baphomet is located in Los Angeles, inside the house on Haunted Hill. Sarah herself should have gone with Richard and helped him find it. These words angered Ariel because she knew that her brother was very scared at home and was having nightmares because of it. But Richard says he wants to know where the diary is because Sarah told him someone is following him. The Baphomet statue itself is worth millions of dollars to collectors, and other interested parties are already looking for it. After the meeting with Professor Hammer, Paul drives Ariel home. He waited for her to get inside before starting the engine, but suddenly he noticed something in the rearview mirror. Meanwhile, Ariel, sitting on the couch, notices a package on the table. He opened it and saw Doctor's diary. Vannacutt. Suddenly she heard a knock on the door and opened it, thinking it was Paul. At that moment, Paul tries to warn her not to open the door, but it's too late, and a group of armed thugs burst into the apartment, led by their boss, Desmond. Desmond admits that he killed Sarah and pretends that the death was a suicide. He is looking for the diary of Dr. Vannacutt to find a statue of Baphomet. Sarah refuses to cooperate with him, so he kills her. Desmond decides to take Ariel and Paul home to Haunted Hill so they don't report to the police. At the same time, Professor Hammer and his 2 assistants arrived at the Haunted Hill house ahead of Desmond's group. As they entered, Kyle asked how the statue of Baphomet ended up in this place. Hammer explained that Dr. Vannacutt is an avid art collector because he believes in its healing power. Hammer gives Kyle and Michelle a ground-penetrating radar, a device that emits an electromagnetic signal and allows them to detect anomalies in hollow spaces. The 3 began their search downstairs when they suddenly heard a noise from above. When they return to the living room, they discover a group of robbers led by Desmond. Ariel was with them, while Paul was outside with one of Desmond's men, Samuel. The professor met Desmond. He used to be his student and now he has become his rival. As they argue, it is revealed that Michelle is a traitor. He uses Hammer and feeds Desmond everything he knows about the diary and the statue of Baphomet. Suddenly, everyone heard loud noises and Ariel explained that Dr. Vannacutt of the lockdown mechanism to prevent asylum patients from escaping. Afterwards, they head to the main control room together and Desmond's men shoot the mechanism to stop it. After a few seconds of gunfire, the mechanism stopped, ending the lockdown. Desmond reads the diary, which states that the statue is hidden in a secret room in the basement. He split the group into teams to cover as wide an area as possible. Two of the robbers, Haru and Varan, went together. Michelle stayed with Dr. Hammer, Kyle goes with Norris, and Ariel is paired with Desmond. Soon, Varan spotted something behind the walls using the radar. He made a small hole to peer inside and then radioed Desmond to report it. But suddenly a hand appeared from the wall, grabbed him, and killed him by pulling out his entrails. At this moment, a brief flashback played, showing how Drive Vannacutt his patients behind walls and left them there to die. Meanwhile, Haru wanders the halls and, in one of the rooms, he meets two beautiful girls. He watched them and lowered his gun. The women caressed him, and then another brief flashback played, featuring these very women being electrocuted to death by Dr. Vannacutt. Haru suddenly felt something sticky on the back of one of the girls. When he looked closely, he realized that they were rotting. Out of fear, he immediately ran away, leaving the two decaying women behind. However, in the hallway, he encountered Drive Vannacutt, who slashed him in the face, killing him. Haru accidentally pulls the trigger as he falls, causing Desmond to hear gunshots. He immediately called his crew on the radio to find out what had happened. While she is at her leisure, a ghostly man pulls Ariel into a stuffed cell. The cell door immediately closed before he could get out. The ghost approaches Ariel and shows her a vision in which the patients, along with the staff, take revenge on Dr. Vannacutt for his torture. The vision ended as quickly as it began, and Ariel found herself wearing a straitjacket. He screamed so loudly that even Drive Hammer and Michelle heard him. When Desmond finally opened the door, he was shocked to see Ariel wearing a straitjacket. Professor Hammer and Michelle also arrive afterwards and are both confused as to how he managed to wear it. Outside, someone with the same voice as Desmond ordered Samuel to enter the hospital. Meanwhile, the professor helps Ariel take off the straitjacket while he explains his vision. According to him, that man led the uprising against Drive Vannacutt the night the asylum burned. However, Desmond and Michelle refused to believe in ghosts and, ignoring Ariel's words, leave the room. At the same time, Kyle and Norris entered the lobby, where they noticed slight movement under a dust sheet covering a couch. Norris checked it, but there was nothing underneath. He then tried to contact Desmond when suddenly the blanket moved on its own. It wrapped around Norris's limbs, which lifted him into the air. Four ghosts appeared, gripped the cloth tightly and began to pull it in both directions. Kyle tries to help, but the ghosts toss him aside, leaving him helpless as he watches the ghosts tear Norris apart. Kyle screamed so loud that everyone could hear his voice. When the rest of the group returned to the lobby, they witnessed a horrifying scene. Even though Ariel says they're standing over Norris's lip, Desmond still tries to call her on the radio. Suddenly the mechanism worked again, initiating a lockdown. Ariel uses this as a distraction and runs towards the door. Desmond tries to stop him with a shot, but he still manages to sneak out. All exits are now blocked, so Desmond is forced to continue searching the statue without Ariel. Soon, Samuel and Paul appear in the lobby, much to Desmond's anger. Samuel explains that Desmond ordered him to come in, but Desmond says he said no such thing. At that moment, Ariel returns, realizing that Paul is inside the building, and explains that the house itself ordered Samuel. Everyone was confused by his return, and Ariel added that he let him into the house because he wanted to go back. According to his brother, the house used to seek revenge, but now everything has changed. While they were arguing, Samuel noticed someone walking and followed them downstairs. Down there, the ghost of a nurse appears, ties her to a wheelchair, and pushes her into a room. At that moment above, everyone's phones rang one after the other from an unknown number. When they answered it, they heard Samuel cry out in pain. Cut by Dr. Vannacutt broke the top of his skull and pulled out his brain, which killed him. A nurse stood nearby with a camera as the doctor finished off another of Desmond's men. As everything went wrong, Ariel took control of the situation. He uses a gun found in Desmond's car for protection, while the others try to disarm the two of Michelle. Kyle then watched over the prisoners while the three studied the blueprints of the house. From the blueprints, they learned that the house was connected to the plumbing system and a sewer tunnel ran underneath it. The sewer gate is located in the shower area directly above the drainage system, offering a way out of the hospital. Professor Hammer recalled that according to the diary of Dr. Vannacutt, the statue is guarded by the dead. He thought it was just a metaphor. There is a crematorium inside the asylum because there was once an epidemic of tuberculosis here and the infected were cremated on the spot. Killed by Dr. Vannacutt, some of them to prevent the spread of infection. However, over time, he began using the crematorium to kill other patients as well. This explains the diary entries in the brief visions. Because of the uprising against Drive Vannacutt, a fire breaks out in the asylum and patients try to escape. However, he started the lockdown and burned them alive. Years later, the ghosts of these patients seek revenge. During their trip, Hammer explained that Dr. Vannacutt was once a great doctor and a great humanitarian who was even nominated for a Nobel Prize. However, from a respected scientist, he changed and became a notorious murderer. The church believed that the statue had a bad influence on people. Because Drive, its owner, Vannacutt, manipulated him and his men with the statue, forcing them to commit inhuman acts. Soon, they found the hydrotherapy pool used by Dr. Vannacutt as a type of treatment. As they examined it, the lights began to flicker. Desmond uses this as a distraction to grab Hammer's gun, fights Kyle, and throws it into the pool. Ariel immediately jumps into the water to save it, while Desmond and Michelle run off with the blueprints. When Ariel confronts Kyle, she tells Paul and the professor to find a way to get them out of the pool since there is no ladder. However, several cold and dead bodies emerged from the water and surrounded them. They let Ariel see what happened to them. In vision, patients were forced to undergo hydro-pool therapy, but Doctor left them, Vannacutt there for too long, and soon they died from the freezing water. The ghosts then dragged Kyle down. Ariel tried to save him, but the water was too deep, so he could do nothing but let the ghosts take him. When he got up, Hammer and Paul used a chain as a makeshift ladder and pulled him out of the water. Meanwhile, Michelle and Desmond argue as they search the crematorium. Desmond begins to suspect her of infidelity and points a gun at her, but she denies everything. Because he refused to put the gun down, Michelle was forced to run. He hid in the dining hall and held the door shut, listening for her voice out in the hallway. Because of Desmond's fear, he didn't notice something strange happening behind him. Turning around, he discovered all the equipment and furniture floating in the air. The chairs fell one by one, hitting the back of his head. The blows knocked him down, and he looked up to see Drive. Vannacutt standing in front of him. He glances at a refrigerator and smiles before the refrigerator falls on his head, killing him. At the same time, the three find a sewer gate in the shower area, which leads to the outside of the asylum. However, an iron railing blocked their way out. Suddenly, a pair of hands reached out from the gate, grabbed Ariel, and showed her where the statue was located. In the vision, the same man reappears from the cell and begs Ariel to destroy the idol. When the vision ended, he explained to the others that the spirits were trapped in the asylum because the evil statue did not allow them to leave. Afterwards, the three find the crematorium site. They crawl into the furnace, which leads to a secret room. Inside, they finally found a statue. He immediately tempts Hammer, but Paul prevents him from getting out. Ariel then fired several shots at the statue, but the bullets bounced off without leaving a single scratch. He decided they just had to carry the statue out of the hospital through the sewer gate. They forced it up from its pedestal, and as soon as they ran back upstairs, they noticed that the house had begun to shake. As they exit the furnace, Desmond blocks their way and tries to take the statue. At that very moment, the burnt ghosts grabbed him, threw him into the furnace, and burned him alive. A vision played out where many sick patients begged Drive. Vannacutt tried to save them, but he just burned them alive. After this, the ghosts focus their attack on Hammer, Paul, and Ariel. The three run to escape, but Paul stumbles. Ariel and Hammer are forced to leave him because they have to get the statue out of the house. They rush to the shower area and try to throw the statue down the drain, but Hammer suddenly attacks Ariel as the statue takes control of him again. As they struggle, Doctor appears. Vannacutt picked up Hammer and repeatedly slammed his head against the walls, killing him. Ariel immediately reached for the statue and threw it into the sewer. A strong current of water swept it away from the house on Haunted Hill, freeing the spirits and finally giving them peace. Because of that, the lockdown has been lifted and the curse of the house has been broken. Ariel returns to the lobby where she sees Paul again. They leave the house together, but Ariel begins to worry, realizing that they have released the evil that has been locked inside the hospital for 50 years. And that's where the movie ends.